Tonight, shocking new details on the Knox Grammar messaging scandal and claims the exclusive Sydney school knew about the offensive chat group but kept it quiet for weeks. The messages are so obscene, we've chosen not to air them.
My reaction was both disgust but a lack of surprise.
Jokes about gang rape, abortion and pedophilia, rampant misogyny, homophobia and anti-Semitism. The group chat on secret messaging service Discord reportedly had more than 150 members, most of whom came from Sydney's elite private boys' school, Knox Grammar.
What social media does is draw into the spotlight the behaviour that has been happening behind closed doors for a long time.
Several students have been disciplined and others suspended, but today it's been revealed the school knew about the group for at least a month, only alerting parents after being approached by a Sydney newspaper.
They are teaching young people to cover things up, to keep silent, and in my experience, that is the culture of the school.
Sadly, these types of attitudes are hardly unique, especially in exclusive boys' schools.
I wish that all the ladies! I wish that all the ladies! My holes in the road! My holes in the road!
In 2019, a woman filmed these teenagers from Melbourne's St Kevin's College on a public tram. A muck-up day challenge sheet for Year 12 boys at Sydney's Shore School in 2020 included getting with someone below 15, ripping a pigeon's head off and spitting on a homeless person.
When you raise young people on this notion that they are superior to other people, we shouldn't be surprised and perhaps we shouldn't even be upset when they behave accordingly.
And early last year, activist Chanel Contos lifted the veil on the widespread sexual abuse of girls at the hands of their private school boy counterparts.
I had all these testimonies banked up from the year before, and so I posted the Instagram poll. The response was, pretty instant and crazy.
As for the Knox Grammar messages, while they've been handed over to police, it's understood they won't press charges.
I think that there should be an independent body that oversees private schools because I don't think they're accountable enough.
So, given these schools receive hundreds of millions of dollars in public funding, is it time governments and taxpayers demand better standards?
Well, James Robinson is a former pupil at St Kevin's College in Melbourne and he joins us now. James, you went to one of these elite boys' schools. What was your experience?
I think one of the main things is that my experience and what I've spoken about publicly in the past is it's not a unique thing. I witnessed and was victim to quite a lot of homophobia and racism when I went to St Kevin's. And I guess the craziest thing was that I was embedded in this culture of hypermasculinity where I could see all these people and figures around me who were saying racist things, they were saying homophobic things, and there was just no one to hold them accountable because this is a culture that exists outside the gaze of adults. It's a culture that exists on phones, in private, it exists in locker rooms. It really instilled me with a sense of internal and spiritual shame for most of my life, probably. I think it's going to be a thing that I deal with for the rest of my life. And I think I'm lucky that I have emerged and have been put into a community of people who can hold me accountable for that kind of behavior. And I think about the thousands of kids that go through these schools and don't think about the way that existing inside this hypermasculine culture affects them on a deep level, affects their mental health. And that always brings us back to questions around masculinity, right? Mental health and masculinity. Why don't we think about the way that we feel? And why don't we think about the source of the reasons that we act and behave this way?
James, it's interesting you say that because my partner of 41 years, he went to one of the very top elite schools and was unhappy there the whole time, felt uncomfortable and went on to become a doctor, but then questioned everything and gave it up to become a clown. So, and I'm yet to forgive him for that. But still a good sign that many of you make it through. And whenever these issues do come up, though, the schools are often quick to blame the individual boys. And do you think it's the schools who should be taking more responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if this was an individual's problem, then we'd see an individual headline. But unfortunately, we're seeing this headline come up every 6 months. So I think it's important for us to question honestly, why are we seeing this headline come up so often? And also maybe questioning whether or not these schools should exist. What place do same-sex schools have in contemporary society where we don't even have a gender binary anymore? And I don't want to come off as defeatist either, because there are a lot of wonderful people who emerge from these schools. There's a lot of wonderful clowns who emerge from these schools, obviously. But at the same time, I think we do have to ask ourselves, what role do these schools have in entrenching this kind of behaviour and allowing hypermasculinity to go unchecked?
The thing about this, James, I went to one of these schools as well, and when the Knox story comes out, or the story about the school where you went emerges, there's nothing about it that surprises me. It's entirely consistent with what my experience was there decades ago, even before social media really existed. Is there anything about this Knox story that actually surprises you, as shocking as it is?
No, I mean that's the thing, right? It doesn't surprise anyone. It especially doesn't surprise me because it's the culture that I've seen for 13 years that I went to St. Kevin's. Maybe the thing that surprises me is that it's being reported on and that it came to light. And I think that's one of the big questions, right, is that a lot of these schools tend to put the reputation of the school above the well-being of their students, which means that a lot of this would be happening, but how much of it actually makes it to the media? How many people pay their crisis communications teams to keep it out of the media and not get to the point where we are with Knox Grammar right now?
James, last year there were calls for these schools to go co-ed. What difference do you think that would make?
Honestly, I think it's probably the biggest step that we can take in trying to abolish this kind of hypermasculinity. Ultimately, because once men start actually socializing with women and other people on the gender spectrum, they're going to start respecting them a little bit more. And it's going to build that empathy. With that empathy, we're not going to see this same kind of oppressive behavior. So yeah, I think one of the main things to think about is that these boys are raised in these schools exclusively around other men, but at the same time, they're going to be graduating, they're going to be going into workplaces with women, they're going to be going to parliament with women, they're going to be going into public transport with women. So if they're going to be engaging with women on a day-to-day basis in the rest of their adult life, why are they being raised like they won't be?
Very good question. James, thanks so much for your time.
No worries. Thank you for having me.